Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head down to Belgium once again and we're going to try yet another sour beer for you. But this is a brewery whose name is almost synonymous with the style. You know, they're very well regarded within this little particular style of beer. But it's one that they're very difficult to get a hold of unless you know exactly where to look or are willing to pay an arm and a leg to get a hold of them. So for the very first time we are going to go to Brasserie Cantillon in Brussels, and we're having a taste tonight of their Kriek 100% Lambic Bio. So this one basically is a 6% cherry sour beer, and it should be really interesting, this one, for a few reasons. You know, it's my first Cantillon beer. This is a brewery, as I say, that have a huge reputation when it comes to the sour beers, but cherries are, to be honest with you, not my favourite fruit. If I was talking about a Lambic beer, I'd be far more inclined to go for, you know, like a framboise or something like that, because the cherries were just, as I say, never my favourite fruit. But you have to go into things open-minded, and you know, this is a brewery that has such a good reputation, so I'm just really curious to see how this one turns out. And you know, I've always said this, when I first tried sour beers I didn't like them, but they really have grown on me over the last little while, and in particular I really like the Flanders Reds from the like of you know, the Duchesse de Bourgogne and the Rodenbach beer. So I'm really curious to see if I can develop a taste for these ones as well. So really looking forward to this one, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. A huge thank you once again to Chris Contreras, who sent me this beer from Belgium along with a couple of others. So a huge thank you for making making it possible for me to finally review a Cantillon beer for you here on the channel. But yeah, let's as always take a little bit of a look at the history of this brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Brasserie Cantillon. Very first time trying one of their beers, as I mentioned. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Belgian beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Brasserie Cantillon then, on to my brewery notes. So Brasserie Cantillon was founded officially back in 1900 by Paul Cantillon and his wife Marie Troch. So at this time there was around 100 breweries operating in Brussels, but apparently Brasserie Cantillon are the only one that continued to operate into the 2000s and beyond. But Paul's father, Auguste, was a grain merchant, and he wanted to help his son follow his dream of becoming a brewer, because Paul had no intention of following his father into the grain trade. But he made several attempts to take over breweries in the Lambic area, and then eventually in 1894 he managed to buy the Van de Zande Van Roy brewery in the Honzock district. But by 1900 Paul and Marie had actually started a Geuze blending business in Kureghem in Anderlecht in the southern part of Brussels, and from 1930 to 1937 they never actually brewed any of their own beers, but rather they were using beers bought in from other breweries and then turning them into lambics and things like that. But following the First World War, Paul wanted to expand the brewery, so he brought his sons Robert and Marcel into the company, and then in 1937 they brought the Brasserie Nationale de Neblon in Uffe, and then they moved the brewing equipment to their current brewery, and in 1938 the first beer was brewed, only a matter of months before the two brothers were then mobilised to go and fight in the Second World War. But the brewery suffered due to lack of supplies during the Second World War, as many others did actually. They did manage to actually recover, and in 1955 they reached an all-time high level of production. Paul unfortunately died in 1952, followed by Marie in 1958, and in the early 1960s the demand for lambic beers and Geuze beers began to decline, and at this point Robert sold his share in the brewery to Marcel, and he in turn was going to stop brewing. But his daughter Claude, his only daughter Claude, married Jean-Pierre Van Roy, who took over the brewery fully in 1972. But the business continued to suffer, but Jean-Pierre, he unsuccessfully experimented with artificial sweeteners in the lambic beers, but then he decided to open up Cantillon to the public and create an exhibition about the art of brewing lambic beers. And news of this really spread across the world, and soon business began to pick up, and they were exporting beers to the US in the middle of the 1980s, and their reputation continued to grow from there. But in 1989, Jean-Pierre brought his son Jean into the business, and he learned how to make lambics on the job with his father, and his father eventually stopped brewing officially in 2009. But it was announced in 2014 that they would also acquire more space for maturation, which effectively doubled the annual production of the brewery, and this began in 2016, and at the moment they produce around 1700 hectolitres of beer per year, or 400,000 bottles. So still a very, very small production level for this brewery. If you think about it, you know, you're talking somewhere in the region of 200,000 litres of beer per year. But you know, the amount of work that actually goes into prepping these sour beers before they go out in the market is pretty crazy. Actually, the amount of work that goes into creating sour beers is a hell of a lot. And you know, I say this when breweries go up, for example, Brasserie like we have here in Sweden. If you think that those guys started out only brewing sour beers, they never really brewed anything else. The amount of time and cost and things like that goes into actually starting up a brand new brewery like that is absolutely insane. So when you go back to one of the older breweries like this and see how it's survived over the ages, it's always a nice kind of interesting change of pace, if you like. But these guys, as I said, they are one of the best known sour beer breweries, along with the likes of Dryfontein and you know, Timmermans and a few others that come to mind. But yeah, they have a really good reputation, but their beers are very difficult to get. Very small in the grand schemes of craft beer and things like that, but it's still a beer that you really have to try once in your life, and they've got a whole variety of different things as well. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about Brasserie Cantillon just now. A little bit of a longer history for you, that one, but I think very interesting. But if you want to learn a little bit more, you can check out the brewery website in the description below, and of course you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, and that'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on at the brewery. But yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. So like I mentioned to you, this one is a 6% Kriek. And this is one of these beers that goes through, you know, it basically goes through an open fermentation, and they add sour cherries to the mix of beer and let it re-ferment in the open vessel, if you like. But it says on the back here, because of its unique complex flavour and its acidulous taste, the Kriek Cantillon is a unique and very thirst-quenching beer. The ingredients come from organic agriculture. Beer with evolving flavour, keep and serve at cellar temperature between 12 and 15 degrees. I think we actually have this one around 12 degrees, sort of 10, 12 degrees at the moment. And in order to fully appreciate the fruity taste of Kriek Cantillon, it is recommended to drink it within 1 year after buying it. To be drunk preferably within 10 years after the bottling date, beer with Krieken. So yeah, from what I remember is when they have the fruits with some of these lambic beers, they can make this almost kind of syrup, this really sharp sour syrup thing, and then add it to the blend of beers. I remember when I was looking at the Owa beer, which was a yuzu lambic, that was exactly what they'd done with that one. But yeah, a really interesting brewery, this one, and this is one of their, I don't know if this is one of their more common beers that they do actually, but there you can see nice artwork in this one. There you can see the poppy fields. I guess this is probably referring to the you know, the Flanders fields and things like that from the First World War. Belgium, of course, parts of Belgium were absolutely devastated by the First World War. I've been to the battlefields, and it's you know, it's an interesting experience, that. But there you can see the bottle cap on this one. It does have a cork in it, this bottle. So without further ado, we'll get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting of this beer. I'm not sure how attached this is, but this beer will take a little bit to get out of the bottle, but it shouldn't be too difficult. But as I always say, if you have any recommendations of different sour beers and things like that for me to try on the channel, then do get in touch and let me know what they are. But I'll tell you, see, when you open this beer up and see that, you can see that little bit of carbonation there. When you open this beer up, you get a lovely aroma out of this. The cherries jump out away straight at you, but we'll just be careful with this and see, just see how it comes. But as you can see, it's pouring this lovely dark red colour. Just look at that. Look at the head on that. You always need to be a bit careful with these Belgian beers because of the bottle fermentation. This one's a 375 millilitres, so we probably can put the full thing in the glass actually. But yeah, you can see a green bottle in this one. I'd be curious to know about that actually, why they use a green bottle rather than a brown bottle. Obviously the brown bottle's protected from light a little bit better, but you could see there was a full, we can get rid of the brewery notes now of course as well, but there was a full kind of finger of a solid kind of whitish pink frothy head on this one, but it looked absolutely lovely, but that's obviously just faded away to be a very, very thin, slightly foamy layer now. But as you can see with this beer, if I hold this up to the light, obviously, it's a very kind of it's almost like a kind of candy apple red colour, or a cherry red. It reminds me of the same, the colour of Angus Young's Gibson SG. It's almost that kind of colour with this one. Not even a big fan of AC/DC, I don't know why I used that as an example. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass there, and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head. But overall, it looks pretty much as you would expect a cherry beer to look. So yeah, a nice kind of cherryish candy apple red sort of colour this beer. As I say, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But overall, I have to say, it does look pretty damn nice. So let's take a closer look at the aroma of this one then, and just see how we get on. I should probably say as well, this beer is actually quite a hazy one. I'm not sure how well you're going to see that on the camera, but if I put my fingers behind the glass there's very, very little in the way of transparency to this one. So let's take a closer look at that aroma and just see how we get on. Now, I'll say with this one, and it just, some of the sour beers can have a really quite prominent nose to them. This one really is, again, very reserved in its nose. When you open the beer up, it's one of these ones that you can smell a lot more when you're further away from it, which is kind of unusual. You get these lovely cherryish notes, but there's other fruits in there. You've got a little bit of a kind of candied strawberry, maybe there's a little bit of a kind of raspberry or figgy note, and also some of these kind of candied fruit esters that you get, almost like the little heart-shaped sweets in Haribo Star Mix. The aroma does remind me of that a little bit. But the malt base is kind of interesting. You can pick up that there's a little bit of a bready, wheaty sort of thing in there. You can really pick that up underneath. There's maybe, there's maybe a little touch of a biscuity kind of note to it. Maybe even a little hint of an almost vanilla quality to this one. You can pick up there's a little touch of a woody note to this beer, and to be honest, with beers like this that are in the fodders for quite a long time, you are going to get quite a little bit of a woody vanilla type aroma out of this. You can pick that up with this one, but there's a good little bit of like an almost wheaty, bready sort of thing in there, some white bready quality, a little bit of biscuit sweetness as well, and you can pick up just a little touch of a grassiness and slight earthiness to the hops as well. So yeah, just pay a little bit of attention to the aroma of this beer before you get stuck in. But I mean, it's not one of the more kind of complex aromas that you're going to come across. It's actually quite it's almost, how can I describe it? It's almost a little bit of a kind of dusty aroma that comes out of this one. It's quite unusual actually. It's almost the malty side of this beer is a little bit almost kind of dusty, which is interesting. But yeah, the cherries, obviously you get a lot of cherry aroma out of this one, but it's quite a juicy cherry. And like I was saying, when you're further away from this beer in the glass, you can pick up a lot more kind of complexity to the aroma than simply cherries. A little bit of raspberry, a little bit of strawberry, a little bit of kind of candied ester, or something like that. But overall, it is a really quite nice smelling beer, this one. So I really like how this whole thing goes together. So as I always say, take a little bit of time and just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But we are going to have a taste of this one now then. So this one is the Cantillon Kriek, which is 100% organic from Brasserie Cantillon in Brussels in Belgium. A huge thank you again to Chris Contreras for sending this beer to me. Let's get stuck in. A Kriek at 6% from one of the most famous Belgian sour beer breweries in the world. Let's get stuck in. Slange, Skal, Proust, Santé. Yeah. The first thing, I mean, one of the things you always get with these Lambic beers, and particularly with this actually, it's very sharp in the beginning. It's very sharp and puckering. I always feel that with these sour beers, you can never judge them on the first taste. You know, this one's really sharp on the beginning, actually. Yeah, I like how this one goes together. It's a lot more kind of subtle and straightforward than I was expecting this would be. It's a good beer, that I like that. And as I was saying, one of the reservations I've always had a bit about the Kriek style in particular was that, you know, I've just never been such a great fan of cherries, but the cherries in this are kind of, they're sufficiently subtle for me to kind of appreciate what's going on in here. As I said, I would always be more inclined to look at you know, a framboise or something like this. I do actually have 2 bottles of Timmermans at home. I'm sure one of them's an apricot lambic beer, and the other one is a framboise, a raspberry beer. But this one for me is nice. This I wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. Yeah, it's definitely a lot more kind of straight up and kind of subtle with its flavours in comparison with some of the other beers that I've had, actually. I mean, when it comes to Belgian sour beers, I'd be very straight up and say that my favourite Belgian sour style probably is the Flanders Red. I absolutely love those beers. You know, the Rodenbach, the Duchesse de Bourgogne, and there's other ones in there as well that I'm still yet to try, but I absolutely love Flanders Red beers. But these lambics are, you know, they are a completely different kettle of fish, actually. This one, to me, I'm surprised at just how light this beer actually is. As always, as I say with these beers, you do need to take a good few sips of them just to let your whole mouth adjust so you can actually analyse the flavour properly. But let's have a go at this one then. So with this beer, you can feel some of that nice woody quality. That just blankets the middle of your palate. You can pick up that nice smooth oaky quality rather, and blanket in the middle of your tongue there. And it comes out the more and more you go into the aftertaste. I do find that this beer starts to sweeten up a little bit the further you go into that into the aftertaste there. If you come a little bit further forward on the tongue, you start to get some of the kind of vanilla elements out of the beer as well. But the woody side of the beer is pretty nice. I have to say, I do like how that goes together. It's the malty base in this one is quite simple. There is a little bit of a white bready quality in there as well. I'm not sure if it's quite wheat. It doesn't sort of taste thick enough to be wheat, if that makes sense. It does taste a little bit more along the lines of a kind of pale malty type thing. There is a little bit of a biscuity sweetness in the very centre of your palate as well with this one, but the malt base is it's fairly straightforward in that, but it certainly kind of fits together quite nicely, I have to say. Yeah, I certainly do like how that goes together. This is definitely one of these beers where it's all about how the flavours go together. I mean, for me, the sour beers, especially the lambics, they're not the most complex of beers, but it's all about how you kind of make that transition, because they've always got a big impact and they're always quite sour and sharp in the beginning, and it's all about how it makes the impact into the aftertaste. And for me, it's all about how the aftertaste flavours kind of blend together as well. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, for me there's just a little touch of earthiness there. There is a little bit of an earthy dryness on the back corners of the palate, and as you come further forward then, the further you go into, the further you come forward in this one, the earthiness just smooths out a little bit. As you move further forward, it's a little touch herbal, and then at the front corners of the palate you can pick up, there's a teeny little bit of a floral quality. Then round the very front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy as well, which is quite nice. But I mean, that's pretty much what you would expect from this style, but there's not much in the way of hop quality with these ones, because you know it is a blend of different beers, and then they add the raspberries and things to it, and a lot of the hoppy character drops out of these beers as they're actually prepared, you know. But yeah, I have to admit again, this is one of these beers that you start to appreciate it more and more. As you drink more of it, actually. So the fruity side of it is kind of mellowing out a little bit. And initially when you take it in, it's very, very sharp and very puckering, and you've got that real citric quality in there. But the way that the cherries come out, the cherries I'm finding are starting to become more and more juicy, and it's around the front edge of the tongue that you can really pick out those juicier kind of cherry notes. And when you go behind the front curve of the palate, you do get that little oily bubble where some of the fruity esters start to come out of the hops. And for me, this one, it definitely has a little touch of a strawberry-ish character to it. There is a little bit of that almost candied strawberry quality to the beer as well, which is really nice. There's a little bit of a raspberry note in there as well. And I don't know if there's some other kind of like figgy notes or something like that. This beer is it definitely isn't just all about the cherries, but the cherries are the most dominant part of the flavour, and as I say, they come out around the kind of front edge of the palate. Whenever you add fruit to a beer, you always get it around the edge of the palate, and it you know, suppresses a little bit of the green side of the hops. But for me, this is a nice beer. It's definitely one that takes your mouth a little bit of time to adjust to, but you can say that about a good few different sour beers actually. But it's really nice this how it goes together. Yeah, I'm liking this one the more and more I drink of it. Actually, I wasn't sure about it in the beginning, but I really do like how it goes together the further that you get on. And I know that these guys have got like blueberry sours and blackberry sours and things like that. I need to try a few more of those, because as I say, cherries, they're not my favourite fruit, but you know, this beer, for a fruit that I don't particularly enjoy, they have pulled off a really nice beer, and they've made the cherries nice and juicy in that sense. So I do like how they've managed to pull it off in this beer. So they get a big thumbs up from me on this one, and you can tell with this beer that, you know, you can really tell the quality of the sour beer in here. It just, as I say, it takes your mouth a little bit of time to fully adjust to exactly what's going on with this one. So just have a go at this beer for yourself and see what you think. But obviously it's a very good and very well respected Kriek beer. This is probably one of the styles that I need to get a little bit more into, and then I can maybe analyse them a bit more. Maybe I need to be a bit more open-minded when it comes to cherries and stuff like this. But yeah, I do like how this one goes together. I'm actually finding, pardon me, the further that I go into the aftertaste with this beer, the woodiness starts to come out of it a little bit more towards the front of the palate. I think the woody flavours really start to push their way out a little bit more the further you go into the aftertaste. But it's a really nice blend of flavours. And as I said, for me, if you're going to have a good sour beer, the things that you need to get are the transition between the really sharp beginning and then just moving into a really beautiful kind of nice and slightly smooth and slightly sweet aftertaste. And maybe that's why I like the Flanders Reds so much, actually, because they do that very well. But this one is definitely a lot more sharp and sour in comparison to the Flanders Reds that I've been drinking recently. But to me, it's a really nice beer, and I need to explore a little bit more of the Lambics. But that was the idea that Chris had when he sent me up these beers. So yeah, have a go at this one for yourself and just see what you think. This is another style that I'm not overly well versed in, but I do have to admit I appreciate this one. But I think my next Cantillon beers I will do, you know, the blueberry ones or the blackberry ones or something like that. But to me, this is a really nice beer, and I wouldn't hesitate to have another go at it later. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say that this one is... overall it's mid-bodied, but I always find the sour beers are, to me, they come across as a little bit lighter than they actually are, and that's just because of the sharper qualities at the beginning of the flavour. In terms of if you put it into the sour beer category, this one is quite a full-bodied sour beer. The carbonation is very smooth in this. It leans towards the oily side of things. Malt base is very, very smooth, has a little touch of sweetness to it. As I say, the woody flavours come out, and a little bit of, there's almost a little bit of vanilla coming on out on the front of my palate now. It's got a little bit of sweetness in there as well, which is really nice. Hoppy side of the beer is very, very smooth. Juicy fruits in there as well, a very sharp kind of impact on this one, but that smooths out a little bit the further that you get into this beer. And you know, overall it's just a very good blend of flavours. The malt base starts to blend together a little bit more, the malts come out a little bit more, the malts and the kind of woody flavours in this one come out a little bit more the more and more that you drink of it, but it becomes more balanced as well as it kind of warms up a little bit too. They were recommending, I think, about 12 degrees, between 12 and 16 degrees to drink this, and I think we opened it up when it must have been somewhere between 10 and 12 degrees, but you can really feel it's smoothing out a little bit the more and more that you drink of it. But yeah, a really, really nice beer, this one, and it's been cool to review my first ever Kriek for you on the channel. So hopefully I can review a few more in the future, and it's certainly shown me that even though I don't like cherries that much, this is a style that I can drink and I think I can appreciate. So thank you to Cantillon for showing me that, but hopefully I can try some of their other beers, such as the blueberry ones and things that I do like the fruits a little bit more in actually. So that would be an interesting experience going forward. But yeah, this one's a really, really nice beer, and if you like the Kriek style, then you are probably going to enjoy this one. But let's leave it at that then. So this one is the Cantillon Kriek, a 100% organic lambic beer from Brasserie Cantillon in Brussels in Belgium. A huge thank you again to Chris for sending me this one. Only 6.2%, but it is definitely a sipper just because of how kind of sharp and puckering it is, but it really does kind of to mellow out and smoothen out and sweeten up a little bit the further that you go into the flavour. But to me, a very, very nice beer, and it's been really cool to review my first Cantillon one for you here on the channel. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this one in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Brasserie Cantillon as well, and I'm sure that we'll return to these guys at some point in the fairly near future. Definitely one of the breweries that I need to go and check out the next time I find myself in Brussels. So until the next time, Slàinte just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, Skål, Prost, Salty.